You sharing this? Oh, you have yours?
Yeah, I got one. Not that it means a whole lot to me, but.
You can watch yourself eat it.
It's not live on Channel 9 right now, no.
No, but that.
If it were to go on Zoom,
Yeah.
if we could do it through Zoom on there too.
I just,
Do you want me to throw it on Zoom right now?
if you could, I couldn't figure out how to work it. He was here working on it.
Oh. I'm trying to find the power switch would be helpful right here.
Come on in.
Or the whole thing.
We were trying to use the, I couldn't figure out how to
Where's
get it.
the TV?
Good, she's a sophomore at,
Well, maybe that's why I was
Stanton.
struggling.
Just doing biochemistry.
Is this the only remote that's up here?
Yeah.
Ashley is a senior
I
at
feel bad now why I couldn't get it.
Campbell.
Well, don't worry again, if you know, oh,
Wow.
Does the TV just turn on?
this little thing just,
Sold his car, which.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I work from home, I work from Verizon and work from
no, that was what we
Vodafone.
couldn't get out of it. Like,
Which is good.
how do you, there's no exit
I
button.
didn't like it at first, but now I don't think I could go
Well,
back.
that could be the problem.
Yeah.
So he was still working, he must have taken it.
We did.
Okay, no big deal.
I'm sorry.
It's not the right remote, that's what I was
So would you like me to give a quick?
Yes, that would be wonderful.
So this is
Um,
a septic repair.
Are we filming?
Yeah.
You're on the cameras right now, yeah.
Okay.
You're welcome.
It's repair because it's an existing house that we're putting in a septic for.
Let me just make a little introduction here. Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Board of Health meeting for Thursday, September 18th, I believe it is.
November 18th,
November?
November 18th.
I believe it is.
Tough day. We were in executive session for a while. Our Zoom was having technical difficulty, but we're live now. We're back in regular session, and we're gonna move on with our next agenda item.
Okay, so this is 1551 Maple Street. It's a septic repair. The engineer has proposed a single air, if I'm pronouncing that right,
Correct.
septic system, which is a alternative secondary treatment unit. And then it's going to a system of Quick 4+, which is an alternative leaching field. I reviewed the plan. Everything else with the plan is fine, but I had two outstanding issues, Mark, right? Only two things?
I'm not sure.
Okay. There were two outstanding things. Number one is the single air allows a 50% reduction in the size of the leaching field, but the quick fours allow a 40% reduction in leaching field. What he's proposing here is a 47% reduction. So I was questioning if we can, if the infiltrate only allows 40%, does he have to stop at 40%, or can he go all the way to 50% by the single air authorization? And I don't know. The other thing is, in the references down just to the left of his stamp on the bottom of the plan, he references B and C. He references the approvals for remedial use. And these documents are from 9 years ago. And the documents state that I can't allow this if a conventional system can be built on the site. And I assume there's a more recent document than 9 years ago.
There's not.
Okay, well, that's why, so I assume there was, because DEP kind of updates their stuff on a regular basis. So I guess I'm torn with whether or not I have the ability to approve this if the system could be built on site, and then Mark said, well, can we talk about it in front of the board, so here we are. I'm a little confused. This is my first single air. This one's a little bit different than some of the others, and again, a lot of these others, DEP is always issuing new documents, and like I said, these are older documents, so.
I'm somewhat familiar with these, and when I worked in Freetown, we had some near the pond area. It's an area you aerate it,
It's an aerated type system.
yeah, and then it becomes a cleaner effluent as it's going into
Correct. It's
the
a
chamber.
pretreatment unit.
Yeah, it's a
which
pretreatment unit.
relies on aeration primarily, yes.
But I'm actually, I actually never saw this when it came to if a conventional system can be put in. So that's where I'm, because normally I would support these systems, because obviously it's a reduction to groundwater, it's a 2-foot reduction.
Yep.
So we're trying to protect, obviously the groundwater, and that's, what better way to do that with a IA system? But if it says this, can we approve it? Should we get some documentation off, DEP or ask them?
Let me know when it's my turn to speak.
Yeah, well,
Okay, I've been designing septic systems for about 30-plus years now. In the past 12 months, I've probably designed 12-plus singular systems. There's IA requirements in the town of Westport, as you may or may not know. That's driven the preponderance of the systems I've designed, also Dartmouth, Westport, and other towns locally. This is a remedial use approval for systems such as this, which are found to be under Title V. They failed the Title V, so this is an application for remedial use. Two things. First off, in terms of the paragraph that Todd has referenced about a conventional system with a reserve area designed in accordance with the standards of Title V cannot feasibly be built on site. Well, that's a generic statement associated with any and all applications, whether they're IA or not, whether or not a conventional system can or should be built. In this case, I've chosen a IA system, which provided me the opportunities to reduce the vertical setback to the seasonal high water table from 4 feet to 2 feet in this case, mitigating some of the grading in the area in the backyard, especially in the far corners of the backyard. The use of a singular system with the reduction in height to groundwater table allowed me to avoid the necessity for a pump chamber. This would have to be a pump, and with the potential of me seeking a waiver or variance to the height to water table from 4 feet to 3 feet. So the use of this IA system allowed me to reduce the footprint by up to 50% without the need for a waiver or variance from the local approving authority or the state. And also to reduce the size of the system by up to 50%. In the case of the use of my infiltrators, I chose those for several reasons in my design, but primarily what I do is, unlike the approval for the infiltrators, which allow up to a 40% reduction, taking advantage of the technologies that are available, in this case, in lieu of utilizing the 40% reduction criteria in the design manual, I chose to use bottom area only. So in the case of the leaching chambers that I've used, the Infiltrator Quick 4 Plus low profiles, the design was based on bottom area only. I do not, if you will, double dip on the requirements that allow up to that 40% in the design guidelines for the chambers. So if this was a stone-in pipe system, you would be looking at the bottom area for a leach field. In this case, it's not a stone-in pipe system, but instead it's a leach chamber system, which utilizes bottom area only. So the factor that allows you the 1.67% reduction for the chambers is not applicable in this case, because the design is based on bottom area only, the length and width of the system, as though it would be, if you will, a stone-in pipe conventional leaching field. So I do this, reduction in height, less mounding in the area of the leaching system, no request for waiver, and eliminates the need for a pump chamber. And that's the nature of my design.
quick question, what is the maintenance of it? Is it, and inspections?
It's 2 times, currently the state requires that the system, the IA system, the singular, not the chambers, but the
Yes.
singular system be inspected twice per year.
And that's from like an outside,
That is a qualified service provider of the Norweco singular system.
and the owner has to adhere to making sure that thing's on at all times, electric, and, because they get kind of noisy and they want to turn it off.
Are they noisy? I don't
No,
know.
no, no, people would say, oh, I heard it, and there was one time I went up to one, and they had unplugged it, and I'm like, you can't, you have to, this thing has to run.
Yeah.
Just so, people have to understand that this thing has to run, and those inspections are required as
It is.
part of the approval.
Yes.
He submitted the documents for recording.
Yeah, all of the documents, the O and M requirements were filled out by the service provider, submitted to the town, as was the notice of the alternative system filed with the registry.
Yep, we have all that.
Currently, Single Air system has the first 2 years of after the installation and startup. The service agreement is paid for as part of the purchase of the system. After 2 years, there's an annual fee associated with those maintenance, currently twice per year.
And typically, what I used to do is put it on the deed, so they would, next person, whoever sold the house or whatever, would understand that the dwelling is serviced by this unit that would need continuous, whatever it was, inspections.
Yes, sir, that is correct, and that's why the state's template for the notice of alternative system is filed at the registry of
I
deeds.
just want to disclose
Yeah, and that is-
everything.
that is
I
the
want to
reason why-
disclose everything, so everybody knows.
So like I said, this is not the typical thing that I'm usually approving, so that's why, for the board to look at it and weigh in on it, makes sense.
Is there a downside in the future for this kind of system?
I believe if I was to comment on what I would say the downside of any IA-type secondary treatment unit is the requirement that the state currently mandates for annual operation and maintenance contract. That comes at a cost, and that would be, if I was to say what is the downside, certainly the positive side is, as Mr. Bernardo had mentioned, is the fact that it does provide superior pre-treatment before any effluent hits the ground, which is why you get the reduction in height to water table and the reduction in size of the system. So from an environmental aspect, I believe there's none. But from a long-term aspect, you would say that that which I, as a homeowner, would have issue with would be the fact that there is O&M currently required, which doesn't mean that in the future they're gonna change that, but currently there is an O&M requirement.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know, Jim, what you think about the
Sure. I'm James
reserve
Allen.
area?
I'm the building commissioner, I'm also agent for the Board of Health. I also own a Title V inspection firm, so I've done over 3,000 inspections on septic systems. So initially, you would think the mechanical devices would also be a deterrent because they're a maintenance item. In addition to the annual inspections, pumps can fatigue over time and they'll need to be replaced. So if you were asking me what a deterrent would be, that would be my comment. However, I did not look at this design plan, but based on what Mr. Roderick just said, the alternative to this would be a pump system. You would also have a mechanical device in that pump system. That would be equal to or more than the cost of what we have here. So they're comparative with respect to each other. If you don't use the IA technology and you go with a pump, you're gonna have a mechanical device there. You're also gonna have a much higher mound in the yard. Probably, based on what I've just heard, it would be twice the height that it is now, unless the board was inclined to give a variance, which may offset it slightly, but it would still be higher than this system that's proposed.
Any issues with the,
No,
first time I ever heard about the reserve area.
No, I don't. I've inspected these systems before. As far as the noise is concerned, that must have been someone who just didn't like to hear anything because
Yeah.
they don't really make a lot of noise.
I don't want to deter you thinking it was
Yeah.
loud, but the person that said, I didn't want to hear it, so I unplugged it.
Yeah. What I find in my inspections is people don't want to pay for the electricity, which is why they unplug this stuff.
Maybe that was the case.
But, I think that's probably more like it.
I think that's probably
Because
what happened.
They hear a motor running and they think, well, gee, my electric bill, my meter's spinning, but I'm sure you submitted the costing on this,
It was part of the standard paperwork, it was
Yeah.
provided by the vendor of the system.
Right.
That documentation, I don't generate that, it's
Right.
provided by the distributor of the system.
But anytime I've been involved with systems like this, we're talking about, anywhere from $10 to $25 for electric
Well,
use.
they have solar panels on it, so that's supposed to save money for the electricity.
So that should
Oh,
also.
that'll
be electric
certainly
use.
be a
Yeah.
factor in the
Right.
case of the maintenance of operational cost of the system.
And this is ideal for what you're trying to do, protection with the groundwater and not getting away from that mound. This is a good system, I think.
The other thing that I'll tell you is initially you would think once or twice per year inspection costs would be something that you don't want to assume, especially since you didn't get to choose what type of system you're gonna have there.
450 or something like that?
Yeah, but in a system like this, because of the aeration and because of the way that it treats itself, you actually have to do less pumping in a system like this.
That's correct.
So you don't have the annual pumping costs that you would have, which is about $300. So, and the technician who inspects this will actually tell you when it's time to pump, but I've seen these systems go 5-6 years without pumping. So again, that's sort of a trade-off.
So you might notice, and that's
Is this the one that aerates it and then puts it back into the tank? The effluent?
this system does allow for that return line. That would be when you were using the TNT version, the nitrogen reduction model that adds in additional nitrogen reduction, which is the
So that's the
emphasis of
one I'm
what
more
the town of
familiar with.
Westport
Yeah.
is currently dealing with, is their nitrates.
Right. But because of the oxygenation of the sewage, it does break it down at a much greater rate than in a normal, suspended column septic tank. So that's why you don't have as much frequency in the pumping.
And in this case, you might notice that there is no septic tank. So in the case of going to a non-alternative system, this would be a septic tank and then followed by a pump chamber. This is one tank, gravity feed versus two tanks. One of them being a pump chamber with a raised system and a pump requirement.
I don't know if you have questions. So are you the
I don't
homeowner?
know.
So this is the homeowner?
Yes.
The new owner, yes, not the one selling, this is the buyer.
No increase in flow in the house and
I
stuff?
mean,
No.
how often would you have to have it pumped? I mean, usually a regular one would be once, like every 2 years that we would do it, but.
It would be, the frequency of the pumping of the system would be a recommendation by the service provider that provides the twice per year inspections. But normally, Title V says, once every 3 years, once every 2 years is recommended. I think that's a little bit of a function with the conventional septic tank of when you pump it. But this is 3 to 5 years when the service provider would suggest to you that it's time to pump out the first quadrant of the 3 chambers in the singular unit.
And the reason why that's not constant is individuals don't treat septics the same way. You're coming from Berkeley, I presume, so you're
Yeah.
used to septics, so you
Yeah.
know what not to put in them.
Right.
And then, of course, you can have the
Plus,
other.
it's just myself living there, so.
Oh, well,
No.
you can go several years, I'm
It's
sure.
It's gonna be a
Yeah.
long system, I
Yeah,
would
but-
say.
But the other thing too is the opposite of that would be if you had 5 or 6 people in there, then the service technician could say, you know what, you still need to pump anyway, so.
So technically, I say the plan's fine, it was just like, say, this is a realm that I haven't gone into, and I didn't know where my authority necessarily was with approving this type of plan, so.
Better off bringing it here, even though I kinda don't understand it, but I like to listen to everybody's conversation and input, and then I can make a decision, and I mean, it's a repair, not new construction, that's a plus to me at least. And the mound is smaller, and I think it's protecting the groundwater more with this system, so, I don't have a problem with the, I mean,
Does it meet the setback to the well?
There's
Oh,
no
what?
There's no
Oh,
well.
it's water? Oh, okay.
In order to reduce the vertical setback to the high groundwater table, as Mr. Aguirre was indicating, generally, if I do not have the 100-foot setback to a drinking water well, you cannot take the setback of the from 4 feet to 2 feet. But there were no wells here. In fact, there are no waivers to Title V or the requirements that we presented to the board as part of this.
That's what I
If I was
know.
to go a conventional system, I would probably have approached the board and requested a waiver to try to get a reduction in the height to water table from 4 feet to 3 feet. But I didn't, there's no waivers required in the terms of using the singular as a pretreatment. And it's explicit in the secondary treatments,
No
standard
increase in
conditions.
flow, you can't meet a setback to a wetland or,
Or a well,
well,
that is correct.
or you wouldn't be able to put it in.
I could still put it in, but I couldn't take the advantage of the 4 to 2 foot reduction in the height
Correct,
to
yes,
water
yeah.
table.
It's one or the other, because
Yes.
you're gonna affect either the
And,
groundwater or...
and in terms of the chambers versus the stone and pipe system, you can't take a 50% reduction because you've pre-treated and then apply the 40% reduction to the chambers. That's the double dip
Yeah.
that you can't do. So in this case, though there's only 10% difference or 8% difference or whatever it was, generally when the design criteria is presented for these, we use Bonham area only, which eliminates the reduction in footprint when you go with the 1.67 factor of the infiltrator units.
So,
And I've done a lot of these. I've probably done 20 of these this year, if not.
No changes to the house adding on or anything like that, right?
Right. And if you were to increase design flow, you cannot go to the remedial use approval that I've cited in the applications at all. So if there was an additional bedrooms or increased design flow, you'd have to go to the general use approval for the singulars,
yeah, that's why I asked, just because there's restrictions.
which does not give you a benefit to height to water,
Because they're saying,
just for the record.
they're saying, oh, you're gonna affect the environment, all right, this is what you gotta do, and then you say, okay, but I'm gonna add another bedroom. So it was all for nothing, pretty much.
What if I was gonna, I mean, eventually I wanna add a garage or a mudroom, I mean, I can do that?
Yes, but you'd have to, when you apply, obviously, when you do this, it's gonna be restricted to 3 bedrooms. And it's also on your deeds gonna say that you have an O&M, program with this system, so. You, Mr. Chairman, you entertain no motions?
I will.
Make a motion that we approve the septic plan for 1551 Maple Street with with the condition of a deed restriction for 3-bedroom and, O&M maintenance program.
Yes, I'll step down and second the
They come out once
motion.
a year and
Any
check it
further
twice a year?
discussion?
So they would call
Seeing
me,
none,
or
all's in
is that something
favor?
I have to-
Aye.
The
Fires
system does
also
not
aye?
require entry to the
We're
home.
not- We're not on TV.
So on their periodic
violation.
6-month basis, they could go and inspect the system. The control panel is outdoors, so you would probably not even know that they were there. So there's no
They just
requirement.
automatically come out and check
Yes, and if there's any reports of maintenance that are required or action that you need to take, they would notify you as the new
10 minutes.
homeowner.
Can we do it?
it. Okay.
And I believe that O&M
Anything.
contract was probably signed by the initial property owner, by Mr. Rebello,
Yeah,
but that contract does transition over to the new owners. And there's no cost to that for the first 2 years
yeah,
after
I
the
know I read
system is
that, and
installed.
then after
Yep.
that, I think it's.
And you should have been given a complete package of the O&M, the owner's manual, and all of the literature that I provided to Mr. Rebello. It was a big package of stuff. I'm required to disclose that.
Go down the line.
We're gonna go with 5E.
Yeah, I mean, when prices go down,
If they go down.
All right,
Ready? We need to move on.
Mr. Chairman, can we take, Mr. Chairman, can we take, item 5E out of order?
5E, right?
Yes. Transfer station price list,
That's a motion, right?
items not specified,
Step
yes.
down and second the motion. If there's no further discussion, all is in favor?
Aye.
Aye, myself, Thomas Pires. Okay, we have 3 items that, at the transfer station, Mr. Rhines was in the other day. Either does not charge for them or doesn't know what to charge. You've been getting a lot of laptops and some computer towers, and people are bringing in a lot of DVD players. There is no price schedule for these things, so he was looking for some type of guidance. After some discussion, we thought what was reasonable would be $10 for DVD players, $10 for laptops, and $10 for computer towers. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, because right now they're coming in.
Yeah, when I came in, I actually brought a laptop, but I broke it and took out some stuff. And he's
Okay.
like, we get a lot of these. I was like, oh,
Okay,
if
so you
that's the case.
wanna make a motion that add to the price list?
Yes, I'll make a
existing
motion that we
prices.
add the computer monitors, laptops, and
Well, we already have monitors. It's the towers,
towers and DVD players for the cost of $10. I said laptop
$10 each, right?
each, yep.
I'll step down and second that motion. If there's no further discussion, all's in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Bernardo, aye. Mr. Pires, aye. Okay, we're gonna add those to the list. Next, we're gonna go to regular business on 5B, Elm Street Animals, on public way and private property. What's going on?
Well, this is a combination between myself and the animal control officer or inspector. There is a farm, they were invited to the meeting, I don't know if they're gonna make it or not, but, there is a farm down there where they have a bunch of animals, goats, chickens, ducks, pigs. They don't have a cow anymore.
They have one cow, one beef cow.
Alright, one cow. And some of the animals have found their way out of their pens and found their way across the street onto other properties, and they've been digging up some of the other properties. So the reason why it's here is it's a matter of trying to contain them, but if they're getting on the public way, they could be causing public safety hazard. And we have obviously a right to farm community, and Mrs. Ferry can weigh in on some of that end of it, but it was part of the reason we were hoping for an officer to be here too, to speak on the public safety end of this, to see if the board should be taking action on that respect. So I'll turn it over.
We were there, myself, the health agent and the MSPC on Tuesday to inspect. Adequate shelter, animals except for 2 which weren't bad, looked very healthy. They do have 15 pigs on the property. They were not aware they could only have 3.
And that was my fault.
But there is a barn permit that they said they had 8 to 10 pigs and nobody caught it. I never inspected before that barn permit went out. They are trying to get rid of most of those pigs, but can't get them to slaughter until February, which is very common right now. You can't get, unless you know somebody into slaughter, they have an appointment February 2nd and 3rd to get rid of pigs. They have made a new pig pen that seems secure. The last time I was there, pigs were just running around. They were all in the pens when we went there on Tuesday. Ducks and geese are always running around. They have tried to put a little fence in their driveway so they don't cross the street. They are working to try to do that. They do know they need to be housed and they need to be there. There is 1 goat on the property, considering last time I was there was 50.
The little brown one?
Yeah, a little brown one.
Follows you around in your
Yeah. I did go out and inspect just to make sure it was there.
Now, what was the time frame when you first went there, and are they making progress?
Yes, they are making progress. I haven't been there since last year to inspect. I have been there too, because I get calls every so often that the animals are in the street. By the time I get there, the animals are not in the street. They're back on the property. So to inspect, it's been a year since I've stepped
But
on
COVID, they were told, same as us with doing restaurants, not to do inspections. So, and so when the application came in, I didn't realize there was a limit on the number of pigs. So when I saw 8 to 10, I didn't red flag it or say anything. So
So what happens if there's animals again on the street? Do we cite them? Do we fine them?
We can, if you know the property. Is it gonna help? I don't know.
Something's gotta deter this.
But they've relocated the pens.
They have relocated the pens back further and to the side. The pigs used to be, if you drove in the driveway, right there. They're no longer there, they're down back further. So they are trying to move them further away from the road. The cow is further away from the road. And as I said, I've been on the property and the pigs have been running around. And all the pigs were contained this time, which was nice to see. The only things that do run around are the ducks and geese and turkeys and guinea hens. But they follow, when they go back in the back, they go back there, they follow you. They won't come, well, they do come to the street. I'm not gonna say they don't come to the street when you're not there, but they're usually,
I just want them to know that they can get fined because it's not just the animal, it's the person driving.
well, that's the
Get into
thing.
a car accident or whatever.
We did
A
have,
serious accident can happen.
we did have problems with ducks on Elm Street somewhere else.
There was a rollover accident.
Right, but in that case, we lost that case because we were told we can't make her put her ducks in a pen. And that's all we wanted to do, was make her put those ducks in a pen. And the judge told us we couldn't make her do that. So,
But to have more than the number of pigs that they have, and
Well,
all of a
that-
sudden,
that's an
one of those
issue.
pigs might get out.
That's an issue, but as I said, they were not told that. I never told them that.
Yeah.
Anytime that I saw pigs, I only saw 2 pigs. So I didn't say to them, oh, by the way, you're only supposed to have 3. Until I said, oh, when I talked with her, she didn't know exactly how many pigs, and I understand why, because they have babies and they don't count in the whole.
What does our reg say?
3, only 3. And we don't, support piggeries, because over 3 would be
You
a
know what I'm
piggery.
saying, if they have little baby, I mean,
But the
baby.
babies don't count
I
until
know,
they're,
up to what age? Does it
till
say?
they're 3 months old.
Okay, just so we're clear.
Yes, until they're 3 months old. And then they either have to go or whatever.
But they've agreed to.
Yes, they've agreed to get rid of all except for 3 as soon as they can. Most are going to slaughter. They have a few that somebody's gonna buy, but they know they can't replace after they're down to 3, they're down to 3 unless they have a breeding pair, which when they have babies, they
Can
have
we
to
send them
go.
something in writing,
We sure if we can.
confirming that with them?
Yeah, like a follow-up with the
Well,
inspection.
they've done personal property damage, that's my problem, and I think that's like a civil matter if, fortunately, the neighbor, I think won't go that route. And they are going to put up a fence to keep them away from that area, which I don't think they should pay for it, but, you know, I think we always felt that if they're making progress, in trying to get into compliance, I know their situation, they're incapable of being able to pay any fines. So, you know, in a situation where maybe we need more frequent inspections of the property.
But it's not just that, see, here's how it works. It's not just the fines. When you cite somebody and they're not in compliance, you can take it to, so you've exhausted all your resources. When you go to court, you seek relief through a clerk magistrate or a judge. And you say, Your Honor, we have a condition here. And then that's when the individual, the judge, says, how are you gonna correct this? So you seek compliance by just saying, all right, come on, we're trying to get compliance here. Our job is to get compliance. So I would first send a letter to them and say, based on this date, an inspection was conducted on your property. Here's our discussion. Prior nuisance complaints will result in a fine, or may result in a fine. We're just looking for compliance. I'm glad that they're doing this stuff, but God forbid there's an accident.
Right, we are going to, I know the MSPCA is planning on going back out in a week or 2, just as a spot check. Surprise them, just to make sure that what we've suggested is being done. I can also, every so often, go up and spot check. As I said, nothing horrific was found. You know, more shavings in the shelters, adequate shelters for everybody. There was a mama pig that was a little skinny, she needs more food. The cow was a little skinny but not horrific, needs some more food. So we're gonna check to make sure that's all being done. So they're in compliance with that, and the pigs, we will make sure that pigs are going, and they know that they need to get rid of those.
Commissioner, I know you wanted to say something.
I'm chomping at the bit, so tell me when it's my turn.
It's your turn.
First of all, to my colleagues in the room, this is not an attack on you, okay, but I have a lot to say, and I want some answers. First of all, I want to know why a bond permit can be issued. I'm also an agent for the Board of Health for everybody at home, so I got skin in the game. How can a bond permit get issued when it specifically says 8 to 10 pigs and our bylaws restrict that to 3? That's the first question. The second question is, just so everyone understands, this is a total of 57 to 85 animals on this property. That's not a few animals, that's a lot of animals. And when someone has that many animals, they have to have the resources to take care of those animals. What I'm hearing is that they're in decent shape, but maybe this one needs a little bit, that needs a little bit. I went on the property, and as I made my way to the door, I got probably 5 pounds of feces on my boots just to get to the front door. That I don't think is a safe environment, not just for animals, but also for humans. That tells me that the people who are running that farm aren't taking care of that farm, because if they did, that stuff would be in a compost pile, which is exactly what their bond permit says, is where they put the animal refuse. So that's not happening. The couple of other points. When I got in my truck, I passed by bird carcasses with feathers that I had picked up since then, because cars are hitting the birds. Now I get it, we can't keep birds in cages or corrals, but these birds are getting everywhere on Elm Street, and they are being hit by cars. We don't want to have another accident. I understand it's, it's one of those things, you're indicting, it's the country, you got to watch out for this stuff. But these birds are wandering everywhere. While I was on the property, I probably had 30 to 35 birds and a goat follow me everywhere I went. Why does a bird follow someone, a human, like that? Maybe they think I'm good looking, I don't know. I actually think it's because they think they're hungry and they don't have food, and they think I'm gonna feed them. Because they followed me everywhere I went, including to my truck, which was across the street on Elm Street. So I don't think it was about me. They don't know who I am. Certainly wasn't about my good looks. It was because they were hungry. Animals who are hungry follow humans. The last thing is, I want to know, this is not new. This has been going on for years, okay? What rights do we have to fine them? And is it locally or is it statewide? I know the answer to the question, but I want to hear it. So I guess I have two questions that I want to answer. What's the process for issuing a bond permit? Because we're all super busy, and I get it, it can slip by. But if the animal inspector is not reviewing bond permits before they're released, that needs to happen. And the second thing is, what are we doing to find these people? Because I've learned, when you have repeat offenders, the only way to get them is in the pocketbook.
Yeah.
So please answer those two questions.
Well, I will answer the barn permit thing. I didn't know there was a limit on the number of pigs. When the application came in, we processed it. But again, there were no inspections being done at the time. We didn't send it to the animal inspector. From here forward, we're gonna be sending them, obviously, sending her all these applications so she can see what the animals are and that she can be reviewing them. We normally just issue them when they come in. So it was on me. I'm gonna take the responsibility for that, and we're gonna corrective action so that doesn't happen again.
Real quick, we used to.
We're gonna
this is
change the
more-
application,
this is
say
more for
3 days.
horses, but we used to have the animals, like the same thing. We used to get these applications, I do a once over, check setbacks, and then give it to the animal inspector, just to make sure, because he was the one, was gonna do the inspection. So, we would check setbacks, and they would check the condition. So, go ahead, I'm sorry.
During COVID, they suspended inspections. You're aware of that.
I am aware of that.
They lifted that, I think, in June or July.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
We didn't have bond books, which was no excuse for not going out and doing an inspection, because I believe we sent you a letter that said we could start doing inspections. I don't know how many we had at the time. You didn't go out and inspect.
Anybody at that time, I usually do it in the fall.
But this problem has been a problem. This property has been a problem pre-COVID. This has been going on for several
Yeah,
years.
he needs to clean it up. There's no doubt. We
But
can,
I didn't realize, is there 57 animals on there?
There's at least 57 animals.
The ducks and the geese and the turkeys.
And then, to answer his question, have we ever issued any citations, any?
Not ever issued, I have not. I'm gonna say I have not, I just know people have.
So,
I have
We
not.
have-
We're not gonna get compliance this way.
we have over almost 300 birds on the property on Pleasant Street.
Yeah, I know that one, yeah.
And there's nothing we can do about it.
no, but this isn't just birds,
This is-
Mr.
yeah.
Chairman. This is,
Oh, yeah,
this
it's
is.
other
there-
Because
there
what
are
happens
other-
is, and I agree, what happens is, those animals, if not monitored, I'm not saying you're not monitored, but not monitored consistently, that number is gonna get bigger, and the conditions only get worse. And it sounds like these individuals, and God forbid, I don't even wanna mention another town, but there was another town in our area that had some serious problems with farms. And if the property's big, I don't know how big this property is.
It's a very large property, but the farming part is concentrated into a small area, which is probably only a little over an acre.
We have to nip it, now that we know, now that I know, I would like to see more frequent inspection and hold these individuals, say, all right, what's your plan? We're gonna hold you to this. The barn permit says manure piles or compost, then let's do it. You have resources, let's do it.
Yeah, and what's in the manure pile? Is it just the cows'
Yeah.
dung that's in the manure pile? Because there's a lot more manure. I'm telling you, I don't know where you walked, but I walked in a lot of animal.
Never stepped in any of it.
Okay, well, you must have floated on air, because there was a lot of it everywhere.
I can't speak, I've never been on the
So
phone.
anyway, so the fining, what mechanism do we have locally? Because I know this Mass General Law, and I'm gonna read it to you,
Yeah.
okay? What do we have locally?
For us, it would be under our regulations, because it's, whatever we have in our regulations, it says bylaws or regulations. You could cite what the regulation that they violated, or public nuisance, or whatever it is. If our barn permit is actually written like as a regulation, you could say, you did not follow this specifically. They don't pay it, that's fine. You proceed it in court.
Right.
Yeah, we can do the non-criminal disposition thing.
I
And
don't wanna go that way either, but you have to, we're here to get compliance.
You know, and I also heard a couple of times that we're a right to farm community. I completely agree. Chapter 40A of Mass General Laws has been giving people right to farm in the state for a very, very long time. However, I will say this, just because you have the right to farm doesn't mean you have the right to farm my property. Stay off my property.
I totally agree
Okay.
with that. I totally agree with that. And being on this property, I have to say, the last time I was on this property, they must have had 60 goats on that property. Now, 60.
6-0,
That's what I just said. They are now down to 1.
Oh, all
They
right,
had 40 or 50 rabbits. They now don't have any.
that's good.
I mean, I understand everybody's frustration, but from an animal perspective, from what I've asked them to do and the MSPCA has asked them to do, they're working on it. I understand they should not be in the road. I understand they shouldn't be on anybody else's property. They have made, we can go out and tell them exactly what kind of fencing we want them to have, if that's what we want to do. As I said, they have made new pens recently. They have put up something in front of the driveway recently. Whatever, you know, you guys want to do, we'll do.
Now they're causing property damage to people's property. I'm not just talking about, you know, rubbing the grass away. These pigs went over there and rooted right above the leaching field that belongs to a property owner. Okay, Todd and I both understand leaching fields. We know that that itself is not gonna hurt the leaching field, but you disrupt the vegetation, you now challenge the way the surface water runs off. It can pond, it can pool, it can have an adverse effect,
It can,
okay?
heavy rain.
So it needs to be addressed.
If you can get, if you say you have a rapport with them,
Yeah.
and you, sounds like you've already made some leeway, this is me, I'm just looking for you guys to go to them with written letters and saying like this, hey, listen, look at the meeting, whatever you wanna do, here's the meeting minutes, here's the letter that we sent you. We're looking for compliance, we thank you that you're doing this, but you have to be in compliance. Like, I would say this to anybody, I would want that for myself, you have to be in compliance. We don't want the animals being in serious jeopardy, we don't want properties being in jeopardy, people getting into accidents, we just want, the property to be in compliance.
that isn't come down to neglect where you let your animals run around and they get hit by cars.
Birds are something different, unfortunately. If they had a pig, I don't know, because my answer is I don't know.
Yeah.
My thing is, if you let your dog loose and it gets hit by a car, I can't charge him with neglect.
Okay, so
So,
fortunately,
I don't know the answer to that. It may be different for farm animals. I don't know the answer. I can find out, but I don't know the answer.
well, birds aren't wandering to get exercise, okay? They're wandering to look for food. So, and if, you know, I'll tell you, 20 of them follow me across the street. Now, fortunately, I had my truck running with my flashes on, and people saw that there was something going on. What if the person was across the street, and they were going to follow that person across the street, and people didn't see that, but they ran through a flock of birds because they were hungry? Well, that to me seems like it's negligent, doesn't it?
I don't know, yes, I want to agree with him in that, but I don't know if I can say that, I understand with him saying they're hungry, but they follow anybody, even when they have tons of food, and I've seen food on the ground and places for them to eat. anytime I've been on the property.
They think they're just gonna get
You're
food.
just, right, they just think because you're walking around, you're gonna give them food. It doesn't mean that they're hungry. And I don't see no problem. I talked to the MSPC officer about it, and she doesn't see it's a problem. She goes, I go on farms all the time, and you hit the driveway, and here comes all the chickens and ducks. And
I've
that's all you
actually
got.
had that happen. I showed up to a place where I was gonna buy trees off somebody, and I was like, all these chickens came at me. I was like, I don't got nothing.
Because they think you're gonna feed them, whether
But I
they're
understand
hungry
what
or
you're
not.
saying. The other, I think it's more the other animals making their way. The birds are, obviously, they could fly.
Does the Agricultural Commission presently have any regulations?
That's what I was gonna say.
We're working on regulations. We don't have regulations for this type of thing, no, because there's a lot of things that we.
We have a complaint form, because I looked it up and I was gonna file a complaint. I don't know what we have locally, because I looked and I couldn't find it. I wasn't thinking of the non-criminal disposition, which covers everything. I did find something in Mass General Law, which is $10 per animal if they're caught off the farm on someone else's property. And that's been in existence for quite some time. It's an old law. And it goes on to specifically say what animals, and all of the animals that we're discussing today are listed in this.
You got the
I do,
reference?
I'll submit it as evidence.
Just tell us.
Would we
Mass
have
General
to,
Law or what?
It's chapter 266, section 118 of Mass General Law,
Chapter 266, section what?
118.
Thank you.
And it says that the owner or occupant of the farm can be fined up to $10 per animal if they're on someone else's property. So if this becomes a habitual problem where this happens, you can fine them. Now, I understand that when you get there, they might not be there. I get that. But if a neighbor was to take a picture and say, here, I had 5 animals, you could write a $50 fine.
Right, I agree, but every time somebody calls, I do go out there. I don't just go, yeah, okay, I know.
Same thing here.
I go out there because I know it's a problem. But every time I go out there, I have not found an animal in the street, or
Yeah.
even an animal
Found a
on
dead-
anybody else's.
On a dead one.
You know,
I have seen a dead one, but they're never in the street when I get there, and I'm not that far away, usually.
well, I think we're gonna do something, at least make them try to clean it up, because it is a public safety issue. It is a nuisance. We are protecting, even though they don't get it, the homeowners from, how many pounds of feces did you have on your boots? So we're protecting them, actually the homeowners. So we are looking out for their best interests, even though they don't maybe care. So we can discuss it. I think we have to have a sit down and,
Well, I think some of this discussion is for the Agricultural Commission, because we had this discussion when there was a property in town with like 40 goats in this much space, and it was like, there's no limitations on the number of animals or the number of acreage or anything for any type, and that's on the Agricultural Commission to make those recommendations, but
they were kept on the premises
they were.
for the most part.
But it was just a lot of goats in a very small
I know you
space.
have to leave.
yeah,
Mass General Law does cite acreage, and 2 acres right now is the minimum in Massachusetts to run business activities, so I'll clarify that, okay? I did look up the right to farm bylaw. That bylaw only references other laws that are already on the books. It doesn't come up with anything new. It's just the town saying that they re-emphasize the fact that they want people to farm in their town, and it references the laws and the regs already on the books. And Massachusetts has been very liberal with those laws, which is great. So we seem to have the same offenders all the time, which is the problem for me. And the fact that they've now caused property damage to someone's property escalates, in my opinion, the response that we need to have. If it means we need to engage the Ag Commission and come up with some regs, then we need to do that. In the meantime, though, you got Mass General Law that you can use.
just real quick, with the Mass General Law, I know with us, we have the public nuisance already in our regs, so you could cite that. But with that one, you might have to adopt it,
I didn't see a local adoption requirement.
like we would do it. We, in our Board of Health, we'd say, we adopt this as one of our regs.
That's what we
Then-
have to do.
when you have the non-criminal disposition, it covers
I see,
bylaws and regulations, you cite that.
okay,
Because I don't
Unless
think,
the
I don't think you
Mass
could
General
cite a
law-
law,
yeah.
a Mass General law, you have to adopt it first and cite it.
Unless it says otherwise, but it
Yeah,
would say it
I
right in
didn't
the
look
law.
that deep into it.
What was I gonna say?
So we have to,
I have another thought about this. Obviously, they're not having all these animals for food. I would tend to doubt.
Food and to sell to.
So are they breeding and selling meat off of their property, which is probably a residential zone?
If they did, it would be protected under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, because they have more than 2 acres of land, so they could conduct business activities.
Yeah, I was just trying to come up with various ways, but I think the nuisance.
or the other one that he mentioned, but you'd have to
Yeah.
adopt it. But I would try to get compliance first. And if say in your letter, you may be subject to fines. Because they may be subject to fines.
We just need to step up our inspections.
Mr. Chairman, if we could go through some of this.
Yeah, we're gonna adjourn, if there's a motion to adjourn, because Ms. Bernardo should have been out of here a half hour ago. He had,
Yeah, no problem.
we can do, we're gonna have a meeting probably in a couple
Yeah,
of
maybe on the
weeks.
meeting, I looked at the calendar, the 2nd or the 9th, we can discuss,
December?
yeah, December.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we've gotta have a special meeting besides a regular meeting to try to catch up a little bit.
thank you for accommodating me. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll step down, second motion. If there's no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Pires also an aye. Good evening, everybody. Thank you.